I found out Josephine was dead at the exact moment a spark jumped out of my ancient toaster, tripping the breaker, and apparently flipping the switch on my past. Damn, I muttered, smacking the lever. The toast popped up like a drunk tossed out of a dive bar. I live alone in Laramie, Wyoming. Brick house. Quiet street. Neighbors who only remember my name when they need to borrow a ladder. And yet, somehow, the past still knew how to find me. The phone buzzed on the table, flashing an unfamiliar Cheyenne number. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but my gut spiked, like the needle on an ammeter about to blow. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. Dorian. The voice was crisp, like it was wearing a tailored suit. My name's Cecil. I'm an attorney out of Cheyenne. If this is about an extended warranty for my truck, I said, that died the same day the dealer did. A pause. Paper rustling in the background. This is regarding Josephine. He said carefully, I'm sorry for your loss. I didn't sit. I had to move. 2 steps to the window where the wind rolled an empty beer can across the yard. 2 steps back to the table where my coffee had already gone cold. When I asked last night, it was sudden. The funeral's at St. Matthew's in Cheyenne. He said it matter of fact, but there was a kind of caution in his voice, like a doctor about to deliver bad news. And the reading of the will is right after. I laughed too loud, even to my own ears. The will? She rewrote that thing at least twice a year. I know exactly where ex-husbands like me show up in those nowhere. I understand, Cecil said, but this time it's different. I perched on the edge of a stool, like it might help me balance 40 years of yes and no between me and Josephine, my head filled with snapshots. The 2 of us in Fort Collins, a greasy burger joint lit by flickering neon, her going toe-to-toe with the manager over the waitress schedule, while I thought, I've never met a woman who could stare into a storm and not flinch. That's how it started. And it ended with an attorney on the line, and me counting the cracks in my linoleum. Cecil, I said, I'll show up. If I'm supposed to be there, I'll be there. Just don't expect anyone to be happy about me in the back row. There was a pause, and in it, I heard a train somewhere out past the hills, low, heavy, like a stranger's heartbeat. Dorian, he said, choosing his word with tweezers, about that back row, you've been requested to sit in the front. By who? My mouth went dry. The documents say, immediate family and specifically named individuals. You're specifically named. The man in the mirror above my kitchen sink, a gray-haired electrician with callous hands, looked back at me like a stranger. I'd gotten used to quiet. Quiet after work. Quiet after the divorce. Quiet is easy. The lights either come on or they don't. People are messy, eh? Does my son know I'm coming? I asked. Baxter will be there, Cecil said. And then, just enough to make it sound like a warning, he's already aware. I pictured Baxter, perfect hair, a suit worth more than my '05 F-150, the half smile he used even in high school. His favorite line, Dad, you just don't get it. Maybe he's right. I never did get how to live in a world where your price tag was your personality. All right, I said finally. How much time do I have? Service is at 2. Well, readings at 4:30. My office on 17th, across from the courthouse. You think you can manage? I looked at my hands, scarred, calloused, still carrying the burn from a drop of molten copper years ago. These hands had held spotlights, ladders, extension cords, and once Josephine herself. I'd managed when the power grid blew in the middle of winter. I'd managed when the house went empty. I'd manage now. I can manage, I told him. But Cecil, just say it straight. Why am I needed there? He took a long, steady breath, the kind people take when they're used to saying things that change lives. Because it was her wish, he said, and because without you, it can't be carried out. What does that even mean? Something thumped on my porch, a padded envelope sliding under the door. I crossed the room and picked it up. Heavy, cream-colored stationery. My name in handwriting I'd know even in the dark. A date in the corner. Today's. And a faint trace of her perfume Or maybe just my memory kicking open a door. Cecil, I whispered, staring at those letters like they knew me better than I knew myself. Did you send this? No, he said. That's from Josephine. She left letters. One for you alone. Inside, something flipped, a main breaker slamming into place. The world was suddenly too bright and too quiet. I ran my finger over fold. Dorian, Cecil said, there's one more thing. What? He hesitated just long enough for freight train out past the ridge to hammer the rails hard enough to rattle the glass on my counter. You weren't just listed as specifically invited, he said. You were listed as primary heir. And that's when the photo slipped from the envelope. Me and Josephine, the day I first said yes. On the back, in black ink, if you ever ask why, start here. By the time I pulled into Cheyenne, the clouds were hanging low over the plains, thick and heavy, like the sky had been told bad news too. St. Matthew sat on a hill, its stone spire stabbing into the gray. The parking lot looked like a luxury car commercial. Sleek black SUVs, polished sedans, one cherry red Tesla that probably cost more than my old house. I parked my dented F-150 between a Lexus and a Cadillac, the truck looking like it had wandered into the wrong neighborhood. Inside, the air smelled of lilies and money. Polished mahogany pews, stained glass glowing in the dim light, everything arranged with the kind of precision Josephine always demanded. The hum of conversation wasn't grief. It was networking, voices low, but full of that practiced laughter people use at fundraisers. I slipped into the last pew. A few heads turned. Whispers followed, right in the air like static. That's him, the ex. I stared straight ahead. Then I heard it, sharp, cutting through the room like a fire alarm. Dad. Baxter was moving down the aisle toward me, suit perfect, jaw tight. At 37, he looked like a younger, harder version of Josephine. He stopped at my row, voice pitched loud enough for the front row to hear. What are you doing here? I came to pay my respects. You lost that right 15 years ago. I kept my voice low. I'm not here to cause trouble. I'll sit in the back, keep quiet, leave when it's over. You'll leave now. Murmurs rippled through the pews. He was giving the crowd a show. I stayed seated. Don't do this, Bax. I'm doing exactly what Mom would want, keeping you from embarrassing her one last time. I could feel the eyes on us, the tension winding tighter. My pulse stayed steady. I loved your mother for 40 years, I said. That's why I'm here. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. But then the wall slammed back into place. He turned without another word and walked to the front pew. The service began. Speeches, hymns, a slideshow that painted Josephine as a visionary saint. I stayed quiet. When it ended, people filed out, avoiding my gaze. I was reaching for my jacket when a voice stopped me. Mr. Dorian. I turned. A man in a perfectly cut navy suit, Cecil, stood in the aisle, leather briefcase in hand. It's time, he said. For what? The will. He gave a small, almost reluctant smile. And I think you'll want to hear this. As we stepped into the cool afternoon air, Baxter was waiting by the church steps, arms crossed, eyes hard. I'm coming too, he said. If there's business to discuss, I'm not letting him. He jabbed a finger at me. Take control of it. Cecil didn't flinch. Gentlemen, my office is a few blocks away. Let's walk. We moved in silence through downtown Cheyenne, the wind tugging at our coats. The courthouse clock chimed 3 times, each note heavier than the last. By the time we reached the office, an old Victorian with polished wood and brass fixtures, my stomach had the same tight twisted to the day I signed my divorce papers. Inside, Cecil gestured us to sit. Baxter took the chair closest to the desk. I sat one seat over, feeling like the odd man out of my own life. Cecil opened a thick folder, the pages inside crisp and dangerous. Before we begin, he said, you both need to understand, Josephine was very clear about her wishes. Baxter leaned forward. Then read them. Cecil adjusted his glasses, looked straight at me, and said, to my former husband, Dorian, and then he said the number. It was so big, I wasn't sure I'd heard it right. I swear the room tilted when Cecil read it out loud. 40. Million. Dollars. For a second, I thought maybe I'd misheard him, that the number had an extra zero, that it belonged to someone else in another will. But Cecil's voice was steady. His eyes locked on me like he was watching for the moment it would sink in. Baxter blinked once, twice, then his mouth curled into something between disbelief and rage. "This is a joke," he said. "Tell me this is a damn typo." Cecil didn't even blink. "No typo." Baxter turned on me so fast his chair screeched against the hardwood. "You did something. You got to her. Manipulated her when she was sick." I didn't even know she was sick. I cut in. My voice sounded distant in my own ears. "We haven't spoken in 15 years. "Bull," he snapped. "People don't just hand over everything they built to someone who walked away from them." "I didn't walk away from her," I said quietly. "We both walked away. Difference is, I never stopped caring." His laugh was sharp, bitter. "Oh, that's rich. And what about the company, Cecil? Tell me she didn't." Cecil turned another page. "To my former husband, Dorian, I leave controlling interest in my company, including all subsidiaries, real estate holdings, and assets." Baxter shot to his feet. No way. That company is mine. I've been running it for the last 10 years. "You've been working there," Cecil corrected. "There's a difference." Baxter's face flushed crimson. "I'll fight this. I'll contest every damn page of it." "You're welcome to try," Cecil said calmly. But Josephine anticipated that possibility. She underwent a full mental competency evaluation before signing. Legally, her will is airtight. I sat frozen, the weight of it pressing down. This wasn't just money. It was the very thing that had ended our marriage. The empire she'd built brick by brick, late night by late night, while I begged her to slow down. Now it was in my lap. "Why?" I finally asked. My throat felt tight. Why would she do this? Cecil reached into the folder and pulled out a cream envelope, my name written in her looping, confident hand. "She left a letter," he said, "for both of you." Baxter's eyes narrowed. She couldn't even tell me to my face. It was her request that I read it after the will was announced. He slid the envelope across the desk toward me. My fingers hovered above it, the paper warm from his touch, or maybe just from the heat in the room. Baxter folded his arms. "Go on. Let's hear whatever excuse she cooked up." Cecil broke the seal, unfolded the letter, and began to read. "My dearest Dorian, if you're hearing this..." The sound of her words, her voice in my head, hit me like a punch. The room, the desk, even Baxter's glare seemed to fade. It was just me and her. And then Cecil said the next sentence, and my heart stopped. "My dearest Dorian, if you're hearing this, it means I'm gone, and you're probably wondering if the world's lost its mind." Cecil's voice wasn't hers, but the words, I could see her saying them. I could see the half smile she'd get when she moved the furniture around without asking me first, waiting for my reaction. "I know this must feel like a mistake, that you don't deserve this money or the company, but you do, Dorian, and I'm going to tell you why." Baxter let out a sharp breath, like he was holding himself back from an outburst. I didn't look at him. I couldn't. "I never stopped loving you," Cecil read. "Not during our worst fights. Not during the divorce. Not during the long silence that followed. I was angry you didn't understand my ambition, but I was angrier at myself for choosing ambition over us." The words cracked something open in me that I'd kept bolted shut for years. My chest felt tight. I tried to blink away the heat in my eyes, but it was useless. "You always wanted balance. You wanted dinners at home, fishing trips, time with our son. I thought that was small-minded. Now I know it was wisdom. You tried to save us, Dorian. I was too proud to listen." Baxter's chair creaked as he shifted, his jaw tight. "Baxter," Cecil continued, "my brilliant, determined boy, you're furious right now. I know. You think your father manipulated me, but you're not ready for this inheritance. Not yet. You've never had to build something from nothing, never had to choose between profit and people. And you spent too many years hating a good man for crimes he never committed. That hit like a hammer in the quiet room. Baxter's lips parted, but nothing came out. Dorian, Cecil read, I trust you with this not because you wanted it, but because you never did. You'll use it to help, not to win. That's the difference. He stopped there, lowering the page. There's more, he said softly, but I think we should pause. No, Baxter snapped. Read it all. Let's get this over with. Cecil glanced at me. I nodded. My hands were flat on my knees. Steady now. He unfolded the next page. There's one final instruction, he said. Something you both must hear together. His eyes moved across the words, and for the first time since I had met him, Cecil actually hesitated. Josephine wanted you to know, he said slowly, that before she died she uncovered something about the family. Something neither of you knows. I leaned forward. Baxter froze mid-breath. Cecil looked up, and she warned it changes everything. The room went so still I could hear the faint tick of a wall clock somewhere behind me. Cecil held the page like it was evidence in a murder trial. She wrote. He began slowly. There is something you both must hear. I only discovered it in the last year of my life. I never had the courage to tell you in person. My stomach tightened. I'd been bracing for legal talk, business talk. Not this. Baxter's voice was sharp. What is it? Cecil's eyes flicked from him to me, then back to the letter. For most of your life, you have lived under an assumption about our family that isn't true, he read. It's time to tell you the truth, even if it changes how you see everything. I swallowed. The way Cecil's voice carried those words, it was like he was holding back an avalanche. Just say it, Baxter demanded. What assumption? Cecil's jaw flexed. She writes, Baxter, the man you called a father all these years. He stopped mid-sentence. What? Baxter barked. Cecil looked at me, his expression unreadable. She asked me to read the rest in private, with both of you present, no one else. Baxter pushed back from the desk, the chair legs scraping loud against the hardwood. No, you're not doing this cryptic crap. If she put in the will, it's fair game. Read it. Cecil's voice didn't change. She was explicit. This part is confidential. Baxter's glare cut into me, sharp as broken glass. What's going on? Did you know about this? I shook my head. My mouth was dry. I don't even know what this is. Bull, he said, pointing at me like he was lining up a shot. You've been hiding something. She's been hiding something. I'm the one who gets blindsided. Not happening. Cecil slid the letter back into the envelope and locked it inside the top drawer of his desk. This conversation will happen, but not here. My office. Tomorrow morning. Both of you. Baxter's jaw was tight enough to crack a tooth. Fine, he said, yanking his coat from the back of his chair. But if you think I'm going to sit here and let you two cook up some story. He didn't finish. The front door of Cecil's office opened suddenly, and a woman stepped in, tall, dark hair, long coat dripping from the sleet outside. She looked straight at me, not at Cecil, not at Baxter. Dorian, she said, her voice low but urgent. We need to talk. It's about Josephine. Baxter froze mid-step. Who the hell are you? She didn't even glance at him. Her eyes stayed locked on mine. And then she said the one sentence that made my pulse slam in my ears. She didn't die the way you think she did. The sleet hissed against the windows as she stepped inside, shutting the door with a firm click. Her coat was expensive but practical. Dark wool, belt tied tight, the kind of thing you buy for East Coast winters, not Wyoming spring. She didn't bother shaking off the wet. She just stood there, eyes locked on me like we were the only two people in the room. Who are you? Baxter's voice had that edge he used in boardrooms. Half challenge, half threat. She ignored him. Dorian, I know this isn't the time, but Josephine's death. She glanced at Cecil, then back to me. It wasn't an accident, and it wasn't natural. The words hung there, heavier than the storm outside. Baxter laughed once, short and sharp. Oh, here we go. Another conspiracy theory from some wannabe journalist looking for a payout. Her gaze shifted to him, cold enough to freeze the air. Do you think I'd fly in from D.C. in this weather to spin a story? I worked for your mother. That made him stop. Worked where? In her private office. The one none of you ever saw. Cecil stood, smoothing his tie. Miss Harlow, she said, and I have documents, emails, things she kept off company servers for a reason. Something in her voice, low, controlled, made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. What reason? I asked. She looked right at me. Because she didn't trust the people closest to her. Baxter bristled. You're saying she didn't trust me? Harlow didn't answer. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thick manila folder, setting it on Cecil's desk. The flap wasn't sealed. The corner of a photo peeked out Josephine, mid-conversation with a man I didn't recognize. Somewhere that didn't look like Wyoming. What's in there? I asked. Proof, Harlow said. But not here. Too many eyes. Too many ears. She looked at Cecil. You have somewhere secure? Cecil's expression tightened. My upstairs conference room is private. But if what you're implying is true, it is, she cut in, and it's worse than you think. Baxter's jaw worked, silent now, his eyes darting between me, Cecil, and that folder. Harlow rested a hand on the file. I can tell you exactly what happened in the days before Josephine died. And I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She slid the folder toward me. But first, Dorian, you need to know she called me the night before it happened. And the last thing she said was your name. Her words lodged in my chest like a live wire. Sparking, burning, impossible to ignore. She called me the night before it happened. Baxter scoffed, but his voice was quieter now. Yeah, right. Why would my mother call you about him? They hadn't spoken in years. Harlow didn't flinch. Maybe because she finally realized what was closing in on her. Closing in? I asked. Her eyes softened just a fraction when she looked at me. We should open this upstairs. You both need to see it, but not with half of downtown Cheyenne walking past these windows. Cecil nodded, grabbing the folder and tucking it under his arm like it was evidence. Follow me. The upstairs conference room was smaller, warmer, thick carpet, heavy drapes drawn tight against the gray daylight. Once the door clicked shut, Cecil placed the folder on the table like he was setting down a loaded gun. Go on, Harlow said. I reached for it. My fingers hesitated over the flap. Part of me didn't want to know what was inside, because knowing meant there was no going back to the version of events I'd been handed, the neat, clean story of a sudden death. I opened it. The first page wasn't a letter or an email. It was a photograph. Josephine at a table in some upscale restaurant. White tablecloths, low lighting. Sitting across from her was a man in a dark suit, leaning in close. His face was half turned toward the camera, but I didn't recognize him. Who's this? I asked. Harlow slid into the chair next to me. His name's Abel. He's not in any company records, not in any press photos. But I can tell you exactly where he came from and why she was afraid of him. I flipped to the next page. An email printout. The sender's name was blocked out, but the subject line read, Final arrangement before transfer. The body of the message was short. It happens Friday. Make sure Dorian doesn't find out. My stomach dropped. What the hell is this? Harlow's voice was steady. It's the beginning. There's more. Bank transfers, private travel logs, security footage. She was keeping all off the grid. Baxter leaned over the table, his voice sharp. This is ridiculous. You're saying someone was planning something, and somehow it's connected to him. He jabbed a finger at me. I'm saying, Harlow said, turning toward him, that your mother was in over her head, and whoever Abel is, he's still out there. I stared at the photo again, at Josephine's face frozen mid-conversation, a look I couldn't quite read. Worry? Anger? Fear? Then Cecil, who'd been silent until now, pulled the last page from the folder, a handwritten note in Josephine's script. He read it aloud. If anything happens to me, don't trust. And then it ended, torn clean through. The tear in the page was jagged, like it had been ripped in a hurry. Cecil held it up to the light, but the rest of the name, the warning, was gone. Baxter threw up his hands. Well, that's convenient. A mysterious note ripped in half? This is the part where you expect us to believe she was about to name some shadowy villain. Harlow's gaze didn't waver. I don't expect you to believe anything. I'm showing you what I found in her desk drawer, locked, hidden under a false bottom. Baxter leaned back, arms crossed, or planted there by someone who wanted to make it look like. Enough, I cut in. My voice came out sharper than I intended. That's her handwriting. I'd know it anywhere. I traced the ink with my finger. The words were strong, deliberate, until a sudden tear, as if someone had pulled it from her hand mid-sentence. Cecil lowered the page. This isn't something we can ignore. If Josephine left instructions not to trust someone, and then she died suddenly... Baxter interrupted. You really think Mom was murdered? He said the word like it was a punchline. Harlow opened the folder again and pulled out a flash drive in a small plastic bag. She backed up everything important here. It's encrypted, but I know the password. What's on it? I asked. Financial records, private messages, and... She paused. Security footage from her condo, the night she died. That made Baxter sit forward, just slightly. You've seen it? Harlow shook her head. Not yet. I didn't want to be alone when I did. The silence in the room thickened. Outside, sleet pattered against the windows like impatient fingers. Cecil stood, moving to the laptop on the credenza. Let's see it now. We gathered around as he plugged in the drive. A folder opened, dozens of files, all dated within the last year. One video was labeled simply, Friday_10pm.mp4. Harlow clicked it. The screen showed a grainy view of Josephine's condo living room. She was on the couch, phone in one hand, a glass of wine in the other. The timestamp read 10:03 p.m. She looked tense. Her eyes kept flicking toward the front door. Then, at 10:05, she set the phone down, stood, and walked out of frame. 30 seconds later, the door opened. A man stepped in. Not Abel. Someone I did recognize. My breath caught. What the hell is he doing there? Baxter turned to me. You know him? Before I could answer, the man on the screen closed the door, looked around, and then reached into his coat. The video froze. Not because of Harlow. Because the laptop had gone black. The power in the room, gone. The room went black except for the faint gray light, leaking through the drapes. The sudden silence after the laptop's fan cutout was deafening. What the hell? Baxter's voice shot up an octave. Did you just kill the power? No, Cecil said, his tone sharp. Stay where you are. My instincts kicked in. 30 years working around live wires made me sensitive to the sound of a dead circuit. This wasn't just a trip breaker. The whole building had gone silent. No hum from the heater. No street noise through the walls. Harlow's voice came low and tight. This isn't an accident. I moved toward the window, pulled the drape back a fraction. Across the street, every light in the courthouse and the diner next to it was still on. Building only, I said. Someone cut us off. Baxter laughed once, but there was no humor in it. Oh, come on. You think someone sabotaged the power because we were watching a video? Harlow's eyes locked on me. That's exactly what I think. Cecil had already crossed to his desk, pulling open drawers until he found a heavy-duty flashlight. The beam cut through the dark, sweeping over our faces. Then the laptop. The flash drive was gone. Where is it? Cecil's voice dropped to a growl. I didn't touch it, Baxter snapped. Neither did I, Harlow said. Her tone was too controlled. If she was lying, she was damn good at it. I was already moving, checking the door. The latch was still locked from the inside. I opened it slowly, scanning the hallway. Empty. Cecil joined me. Only two ways in or out. This door and the fire escape in the back. We headed that way, the flashlight beam bouncing across the hallway walls. The door to fire escape was shut, but the metal push bar was cold to the touch. And when I opened it, sleet swirled in. The narrow stairs were slick and empty, but fresh footprints marked the ice, heading down, not up. Someone was here, I said. Baxter's voice came from behind us, shaky now. So what? We call the cops. No cops. Harlow cut in instantly. Not until we know exactly what's on that drive. If it's what I think it is... She trailed off, glancing toward the dark conference room. What do you think it is? I asked. She hesitated, then said, enough to make sure Josephine's death doesn't stay labeled an accident. We moved back into the room. Cecil locked the door and set the flashlight on the table, the light pooling in the center like a stage spotlight. Outside, the sleet had stopped. Too quiet now. Harlow took a breath, looked at me directly. Dorian, that man in the video, the one you recognized. The sound of footsteps in the hallway cut her off. Slow, deliberate, coming closer. Cecil turned off the flashlight. We all held our breath. The steps stopped right outside the door. Then a slip of paper slid under it. In thick black marker, 4 words. Stop looking. Or else. The flashlight beam fell over the paper like it was radioactive. 4 words. Thick strokes. No signature. Just a smell of marker ink still sharp in the air. Baxter broke the silence first. Cute. Somebody's been watching too much cable TV. Harlow didn't smile. They were here, in the hallway, while we were talking. Cecil bent down, picked up the note with 2 fingers, careful not to smudge it. Heavy stock paper. This wasn't torn from a legal pad. This was prepared. Meaning what? Baxter asked. Meaning, Cecil said, it was deliberate. They brought it here. I couldn't stop staring at the black letters. Stop looking. Or else. It was the kind of thing you see in bad thrillers, except it was lying on the table in front of me, smelling of fresh ink and cold air from a hallway. I asked, how many people have keys to this building? 4, Cecil answered. Myself, my assistant, the building manager, and the cleaning crew, and I know all of them personally. That doesn't mean one of them didn't hand over a copy, Harlow said. Baxter's arms crossed tight. Or maybe one of them was following you. He looked straight at me. You were the one who recognized the guy in the video. You gonna tell us who he is? Every pair of eyes turned my way. I opened my mouth, then shut again. The truth was, I had recognized him, but only for a split second, and from a place I didn't want to revisit. If I said his name now, the room would explode. I'm not sure. I lied. Baxter laughed, low and disbelieving. Right. Sure you're not. Harlow stepped between us. Enough. This is bigger than your pissing contest. That drive is gone, and whoever took it didn't want us seeing that clip. That tells me it's exactly as dangerous as I thought. Cecil was already moving toward the phone on the wall. I'm calling building security to check the cameras. The phone rang in his hand. Loud. Sudden. We all jumped. He answered, put on speaker. Cecil. The voice on the other end was male. Calm. Too calm. You've opened the wrong drawer, Mr. Dorian. My blood went cold. Who is this? Close it, the voice said. Close it, and you might still have a future. And if I don't... There was a pause long enough for me to hear faint static in the line. Then we finished what we started with Josephine. The line went dead. We all just stared at the phone like it might ring again. Finally, Harlow spoke. They know exactly where we are. Before anyone could answer, something heavy slammed against the back door of the building. Once, twice, then the sound of the lock snapping. Footsteps, more than one pair. They were inside. The sound of boots on tile carried up on the first floor, heavy, quick, purposeful. Whoever they weren't here for conversation. Cecil killed the flashlight, plunging us into darkness. Move away from the door, he whispered. Baxter's voice cut through the shadows. You have an alarm, right? It's not connected to police, Cecil murmured. Just the building manager. That's not going to help us right now. Harlow was already moving toward the sidewall. Conference room has a secondary exit? Cecil nodded, motioning toward a narrow door at the far end, half hidden behind a coat rack. Fire stairs to the alley. But if they're professionals, they'll know about it. The footsteps hit the base of the stairwell. The sound of a door slamming open echoed upward, followed by another pair of feet. 2, maybe 3 people total. Baxter leaned close to me. You've got your little mystery now. Congratulations. Shut up. I muttered, straining to listen. The steps were coming up the main staircase fast. Whoever it was didn't care about stealth anymore. Cecil eased a narrow door open, wincing at the creak of the hinge. The smell of cold air and wet pavement seeped in from the alley beyond. "Go!" he whispered. Harlow slipped through first, moving quietly down the metal steps. Baxter followed, muttering something under his breath. I was next. The metal was slick with sleet, my hand gripping the railing tight. We were halfway down when the sound of the main conference room door bursting open rang through the building. Clear, a male voice barked. Another answered. "They're not here. Back exit." We picked up speed. My boots hit the last step, and I was turning toward the alley when I caught a shadow moving at the far end. Fast. Closing in. Back inside. I hissed. Too late. The figure broke into a run. Harlow grabbed my arm and pulled me toward the opposite end of the alley. We spilled out onto a side street, the wind cutting through my jacket. A black SUV sat idling at the curb. Dark windows. No plates. The rear door swung open. A man stepped out. Not tall, but broad-shouldered, wearing a dark coat zipped up to his throat. His face was calm, almost expressionless, except for the eyes. I knew those eyes. He smiled just barely. "Evening, Dorian." Baxter froze beside me. "Who the hell?" The man ignored him and reached into his coat. I braced myself. Instead of a weapon, he pulled out the missing flash drive. He held it up between two fingers, the streetlight glinting off the metal. "Looking for this?" he said. The flash drive dangled in his hand like bait on a hook. The SUV's engine hummed, exhaust curling into the cold air. Baxter took a step forward. "Give it to me." The man's gaze never left mine. "This isn't yours." "And it sure as hell isn't his," he said, jerking his head toward Baxter. "Josephine wanted you to have it, Dorian." Harlow's voice was razor sharp. "Then why run off with it in the middle of a blackout?" He almost smiled. "Because there are people who'd kill for what's on here. People already looking. And I'm not in the business of getting killed for free." Cecil's voice was steady. "So this is a transaction." "That's right," the man said. He slid the drive into his coat pocket. "You want it. You'll do something for me first." I stepped closer. "And what's that?" He tilted his head toward the SUV. "Get in. We can't talk about it here." Baxter barked a laugh. "You think we're climbing into some unmarked car with a guy who just broke into a law office?" The man's eyes flicked to Baxter, and the temperature between them dropped 10 degrees. "You can stay here if you want, Junior, but you're not the one they're after." I didn't like the way he said they. Harlow moved subtly, putting herself half a step in front of me. "If you got something to say it now." He sighed like we were wasting his time. "What's on this drive connects Josephine's death to 3 other people who are also no longer around to tell their story, all within the last 18 months. You think that's coincidence?" The alley felt smaller suddenly. I didn't answer. He continued. "One of those people was a partner in a holding company Josephine worked with. Another was an accountant. The third," he stopped like he'd said too much already. "Who?" I asked. He studied me for a long moment. "Someone you know." My gut twisted. "Name." He shook his head. "Not here. You want the truth? You want this drive? Then you meet me tomorrow night. Alone." Cecil stepped in. "That's not happening without some assurance." The man finally broke into a real smile, cold, humorless. "Your assurance is that I'm still breathing. And so are you. Don't push it." From down the street, the faint wail of a siren grew louder. His head snapped toward the sound. "Decision time, Dorian. Tomorrow night, or this disappears forever." Before I could answer, he backed into the SUV. The door slammed, the engine roared, and the vehicle peeled away into the dark. Baxter turned to me, face pale. "You're not actually going to meet him, are you?" I didn't answer. I was still staring at the place where the SUV had been when Harlow's phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen, then froze. Her eyes darted to me. "It's a text," she said quietly, "from Josephine's number." The wind cut down the alley, sharp and cold, but I barely felt it. My eyes were locked on Harlow's phone, the pale glow of the screen lighting her face. Baxter stepped closer. "From her number? That's impossible." Mom's phone was locked in evidence or destroyed. I don't even know which. Harlow didn't look up. It's her number. She turned the phone so we could see. The message was short. 6 words. Stop digging. It's not safe. No signature. No punctuation. Just those words. Could be a spoof, Cecil said, his voice flat. Anyone can make a text look like it came from a certain number. Maybe, Harlow replied. But whoever sent this knew the exact timing of what just happened here. She slid the phone back into her coat pocket, like it was something fragile. Baxter shook his head. This is absurd. We're being jerked around by some wannabe spy with a stolen flash drive, and now we're supposed to believe my dead mother is texting from the grave? I wasn't so quick to dismiss it. Not that I believed Josephine was alive, but the message, the blackout, the man in the SUV, none of it felt random. I asked Harlow, has this number contacted you before? Since she died? Her hesitation was small, but noticeable. Once. A week ago. Just one word. Soon. The silence stretched between us, heavy and cold. Finally, Cecil said, we can't stand here waiting for whoever's playing games. We need to get somewhere secure, regroup, and decide whether to meet this man tomorrow. Baxter was still muttering as we moved toward the street. Secure. Right. In this town. We split into 2 cars, Cecil with Baxter, Harlow insisting on riding with me. The snow had started again, thick flakes drifting in the headlights as I drove. She stayed quiet until we hit the edge of downtown. Dorian, about the man in the video, she said. I need to know why you recognize him. My hands tightened on the wheel. It's complicated. Make it simple, she said. I thought about lying again, but something in her tone told me she wouldn't let it go. I worked with him. Years ago. At the plant. Her head snapped toward me. And you didn't think to mention that? I wasn't sure it was him. The footage was grainy. I paused. But if it is him, then Josephine knew someone from my past. And that scares me more than anything else so far. We pulled into the motel lot Cecil had suggested, one of those low, L-shaped places on the edge of town, where the ice machine is always broken. Harlow followed me inside my room. She shut the door, locked it, then pulled her phone again. Dorian, there's more. After the text, I got a second notification. She handed me the phone. It was a photo, grainy, black and white, clearly from a security camera. It showed me, standing in my own driveway, taken 15 minutes ago. I stare at the phone, my own face staring back at me in that washed-out security cam gray. The timestamp in the corner read 9:12 p.m., less than 20 minutes ago. That's impossible, I said. I've been with you the whole time. Harlow took the phone back. Exactly. Which means someone was in your driveway tonight, while you weren't there and wanted you to know it. My gut tightened. How would they even get that shot? That camera is wired into my own system. It's not connected to anything online. Then they had physical access, she said flatly. Baxter's voice rang in my head. You've got your little mystery now. Congratulations. Only this time, there was nothing smug about it. I pulled out my wallet and slid my key ring onto the bedspread. 2 house keys. One for me, one for the landlord. That's it. Harlow didn't take her eyes off me. You trust your landlord? Enough to believe he wouldn't be sneaking around taking pictures of me, I said. Besides, the guy's 75 and can barely climb a flight of stairs. She crossed to the window, peeking between the cheap curtains at the parking lot. The snow had picked up, flakes swirling under the buzzing sodium lights. Whoever's doing this, they're ahead of us. They have eyes on you, maybe on all of us. I sat on the edge of the bed, the weight of it settling in. This wasn't just about Josephine anymore. It was about the fact that my life had already been mapped out in someone else's crosshairs. The motel room phone rang. The sharp, old-fashioned bell made both of us jump. I picked it up slowly. Yeah. A man's voice, low, calm. Nice place you got here, Dorian. Bit drafty, though. Who is this? You got 24 hours to get that drive back, he said. Or the next photo you see will be a lot closer than your driveway. The line went dead. Harlow was already pulling on her coat. We need to move, Now. To where? I asked. Somewhere they won't expect. We left through the side exit, avoiding the main lot. The snow was deeper now, crunching under our boots as we crossed her car. She started the engine, the heater blasting stale warm air. Do you think it's the same guy from the SUV? I asked. She shook her head. No, different cadence, different threat. This one's local. The roads were slick as we headed toward the edge of town. I kept checking the rear view. A pair of headlights appeared 2 turns back and stayed there. They're following us. I said. I know, she replied, not taking her eyes off the road. We're going to find out who. We took a sudden right onto an unlit service road. The headlights behind us followed. Another turn, then another, weaving through an industrial park. Finally, she slammed the brakes, killed the lights, and we sat in darkness. The headlights appeared again, slowing, searching. The car rolled past, and for a second I saw the driver's face illuminated by his dash lights. It was Baxter. The thumbnail on my phone was still moving, the grainy live feed showing me, and Harlow crouched in the snow from some unseen angle. The text under it burned into my eyes. You're next. I showed her the screen. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't say a word. She just reached for the glove box, pulled out a small pistol, checked the magazine, and slid it into her coat. Dorian, she said, this doesn't end unless we end it. The SUV was gone now, but Baxter's taillights were long out of sight too. My son, my blood, and maybe the last person I could trust, if I could trust anyone at all. We left the depot, heading straight for Cecil's office. The lights inside were dark, but his car was still parked out front. My chest tightened. The door was unlocked. We stepped in, moving slow, every creak of the floorboards sounding like it carried for miles. The flashlight beam swept over the reception desk, the chairs, the conference room door, ajar. Cecil was inside, slumped over the table, a dark stain spread beneath his head. His eyes were open, glassy, fixed on the far wall. Harlow moved to check him, then stopped. He's gone. My gaze fell to the table. The torn note Josephine had written was there. Only now, the missing half was taped back in place. The words were whole again. If anything happens to me, don't trust Baxter. The air in my lungs froze. Harlow read it over my shoulder, then looked at me. You know what this means. I didn't answer. My mind was already replaying the depot, the meeting with the man in the SUV, the object Baxter had pocketed, and then footsteps sounded in the hallway behind us. Baxter stepped into the doorway. His coat was wet from the snow, his eyes steady and unreadable. I see you found it, he said. I stood slowly. You going to tell me why? He glanced at Cecil's body, then back to me. Because Mom built something worth billions, and she was about to hand it all to a man who'd never know what to do with it. I couldn't let that happen. You think killing her was the answer? My voice shook, from anger or grief. I couldn't tell. His jaw tightened. You don't understand. She wasn't who you think she was. She made enemies, Dorian. Dangerous ones. I made a deal to protect what was left. By working with a man in the SUV? Harlow asked. Baxter's eyes narrowed. By keeping certain things off that drive. I took a step toward him. Then give it to me. He smiled faintly. Can't. It's gone. A sudden noise outside, the growl of an engine. Headlights flared through the blinds. Baxter's smile faded. They followed me here, he said. And if you want to live, you'll come with me. Now. I looked at Harlow. She was already shaking her head. You walk out that door with him. You're part of whatever deal he's made. Baxter extended his hand. Dad, please. The gunmetal shadows of the office closed around us. The sound of car doors slamming outside echoing like thunder. I felt the weight of every choice I'd made, every mile between me and Josephine, every word in that letter. And I realized there was only one way this ended, by stepping into the storm, not away from it. I turned to Baxter. If I go with you, we do this my way. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded once. Outside, boots crunched in the snow. The front door handle rattled. And when it swung open, all three of us were staring down the barrel of the gun. Fade to black. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the right.